What's up, my friend? Aloha Mike number 2.
Hey, aloha. No, things are good. I'm on a different island now. I'm in Maui, so
it's not just a state of mind; it's a state of reality. You've actually moved.
Yeah.
Look at you. You're all calm and peaceful. You're leaning back. You look relaxed.
Yeah, I'm pretty calm. So I'm sure you can give me relevant.
Well, that really is the question, because oftentimes as we go through the episodes, I see how long it takes me to really get under your skin. But if you're on vacation, if you're on a tropical island, is it even possible?
It's possible. Yeah. At the Marriott, I managed to get security called on me down at the pool. So
I knew you weren't a masker.
That's not why. So there were a lot of rules at the Marriott on Oahu. They so to go to the pools, you had to make reservations 24 hours in advance for a 2-hour period.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So that was kind of a mess. But
do they just have one pool?
No, they have a couple. They have multiple pools.
So when you make a reservation, do you know what pool you're reserving?
You can. Here's the thing. What they're concerned about is where you put your stuff and where you lounge when you're not in the water, right? So they have all the lounge chairs and the shade. They're like palapas or grass umbrellas, and they're all spaced out. And so you can make a reservation. You make a reservation for whichever pool you want to hang out at. During that 2-hour period, you can walk over and go in the other pool. You get a wristband, is what it is.
So, you can go pee in one pool and then walk out and go into the other pool? Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to pee in the pool with the little kids?
Exactly. Blame it on the kids.
So, one good thing at the Marriott, there's a lot of good things. There's pros and cons. One good thing, they have one of the pools there is just not really for kids. So, that makes it pretty relaxing. And then the kids have 2 pools there where they can do whatever they want, scream, yell, whatever. And then so there's a way around this 2-hour reservation deal. You have to rent a cabana on the beach, which is big wood frame with 2 lounge chairs built in it and a shade deal that pulls over the top.
I know what a cabana is.
Well, you're absolutely right, Travis. So when you do that, then you have pool access all day. You don't have to make any reservations, right? Anytime you want to go to the pool, just go to the pool. So went to the pool on Friday at 10 minutes to 2 with my cabana wristband, right? And get in the pool, and not quite 10 minutes later, so the guy comes and goes, "I'm sorry, sir, you're going to have to, exit the pool. We need to do our refreshing," because during that time they go around and clean all the chairs and all this shit and change all the people out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not. No reason for me to get out of the pool. First off, I just got in, and second, I'm
official. I have this wristband. I'm allowed to be here.
Yeah, I have all day access. And he's like, yeah, but you have to get out now so we can clean. I go, well, I don't have lounge chairs here or anything, so clean away, have a good time. So the guy goes, no, but you have to get out. It's policy. I go, yeah, you're gonna have to give me a better reason than that. And so argued with him for a little bit, and he's like, I'm like, look, just get security or whatever it is you're gonna do, and leave me the hell alone.
See, oftentimes I get labeled as the guy, and I've said I don't like being told what to do, but you're right there with me. We've already established the Disneyland story where you tried to walk through security without shoes. And now you're being told to get out of the pool, and you're like, fuck off, call security.
That's right. I did refrain because I knew this was going to go. I knew I was eventually going to get out, but I was getting pissed, and I'm just like, look, I need a better reason. So, yeah, had security down there, and the guy, the first kid says, sir, if you don't want any trouble, you should just get out. And I go, look, kid, you don't even know what trouble is.
What kind of trouble were you going to dish on him?
Yeah. So anyway,
what were you planning in your head? What, a double leg takedown? You gonna take the back? What were we doing here?
You get me out of this pool. Yeah,
you were just gonna
get me out. Yeah,
you were gonna pull the dead body weight strategy, which is I'm gonna lay here and you're gonna drag me out. Literally over my dead body was your strategy.
Yeah. So the good news is there's none of that here. at this here in Maui at this at the Westin, there's no reservation. You can go to the pool anytime you want.
So you had to wear that wristband. I mean, do you have to wear it just to walk around the grounds?
At the Marriott, you just had to wear it to go swimming. So they have, I mean, it's not very crowded. So that's a plus, either place. We just got here last night late. So our plane took off from Honolulu, our inter-island flight, got out 5 minutes, and then they had to turn around and come back and land again.
Why?
And then sat on the ground for 30, 40 minutes. They never really told us. They said they had some lights on the...
That's fucking freaky.
In the cockpit. Well, you should probably know more about it than me. I figured it was worse than that. And frankly, as we turned around to come back and land, I thought, hey, if they're just not telling us and this is landing gear problem or something, this might be it. But
so you take off and literally 5 minutes into the air, they tell you we got to turn around. Did the plane do anything funny or sound funny?
No, not really.
Were you freaking out?
They said it was lights. They had lights on that they had to go, but they needed to return and get straightened out.
And by lights, they didn't mean like fire lights outside on the engine, full height that you would cruise,
It was almost as soon as we got up. Almost as soon as we got. I mean, it was very soon after we started. So yeah, so we had it was a 12:10 flight. We finally got to Maui at a little after 2:00.
But we just told that story about the Aloha Airlines. Remember, you brought it up, and then where the whole roof came off. That was an inter-island flight. So were you all thinking like, "What the fuck?"
Oh, you know what I worry about on those inter-island flights is, wow, is this plane getting the maintenance it really deserves?
The answer is no. Are any of them? I used to want to think that. If you had a flight that was going over the ocean, I thought that plane was in a hangar all night long. They changed the oil. They washed it. Because you know how everything works better after it's clean, right?
Yeah.
Everybody inspected it with a fine-tooth comb. We don't take off until the morning. We've triple-checked everything, and then we fly across the ocean. But it's not. They keep these things, as soon as one lands, they literally put gas in it, and they fill it up, and they fly back. I mean, are any of these things actually getting the maintenance they deserve? I don't think so.
Right. I don't know if you heard me say this before, but our seats were directly, right next to the engines, right? So our window looked right out on the silver ring around the cowling of the engine, mounted at the tail. So we're at the back
so you're in like those MD, whatever they are.
Yeah. The two big engines on the tail,
right
at the back. It's crazy, and so. Yeah, I was watching that, and then it was funny because we'd just taken off, and so I'm looking at that thing as we're taking off, going, "Oh my God, I hope that doesn't happen." And then the next thing you know, the pilot comes on, and here's the thing: oh my God, the worst intercom ever. Couldn't understand a word he fucking said, except I expect a normal landing. That's all I could get out of his whole message.
What? I mean, that's the other thing too. If there really is something going on, like we talked about that. 777 that was from Denver going to Hawaii, and the engine blew up, and we played the clips, and the pilots are trying to deal with that, right? So they're going through the checklist, they're trying to keep the plane in the air. The last thing that you would expect is for them to communicate with the passengers, because they got to solve the problem first. So he's dealing with it, and then he has the wherewithal to tell you guys, expect a normal landing. That's kind of freaky. Like, in the 5 minutes I've been freaking out since we took off, Mr. Captain, I guess I did think we were going to plunge into the ocean, but thank you for reassuring me that these lights mean we're going to expect a normal landing.
I know. I totally, Debbie and I said, hey, I love you. It's been great. Nobody else I'd rather crash into the ocean with, that kind of stuff.
That's freaky.
But anyway, all's well that ends well. We got here. So put us here a little late last night. We got in we got heat in the room about 5:00. And so time to make a little dinner and then, crash out. So
does something like that ever make you think that you might want to have another cocktail? Because if we have, for our listeners, Mike, he doesn't partake anymore. I think we've addressed that. But does something like that make you think, fuck, I could use a vodka about now?
Because I knew we were having, it was going to take about 10 minutes, 15 minutes for them to turn this thing around and get lined up for probably on the emergency landing strip. I don't know. But I'm looking around going, okay, I might have 15 minutes to live. What is it? It's that question. If you only had 15 minutes to live, what would it be that you would wish you would remember to do? And there's nothing on that fucking plane, and alcohol wasn't ever even enter my mind. But a few other things, but there's no
like cigarettes.
Cigarettes. There's no cigarettes on the goddamn plane. Right?
But in that case, let's say if you had cigarettes, because let's say that you were still smoking and you had cigarettes. If you thought you were going down, wouldn't you just light it up and say fuck it?
Well, if I knew for sure, but if I, this was pretty chancy. I mean, most likely this was some. I mean, the stewardess was completely calm. She's like, "Oh yeah, it's some lights or something. It's no big deal. It's routine." So
makes you think they have a problem with these lights all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was busy rereading the safety thing in the back of the seat in front of me. So.
Oh Jesus, that's
there
freaky.
There's no cocaine on that plane. There's no nothing like that. Nobody had any pot. I mean, there was nothing. There's nothing to go one last time for. You know what I mean?
So we established that one of the things you thought about, one of them was not alcohol, but one of them was cigarettes, and the other was cocaine.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but there was nothing. So I just spent some time holding Debbie's hand and figuring that this probably wasn't the end, because nobody seemed alarmed enough to worry about. Although I could see some of the passengers were furtively looking around. What's going on? And there's no answer. Right?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, the good news is that even a routine flight like that is maybe 20 minutes.
This flight should have been 40 minutes, from takeoff to landing in Maui. So yeah, it should have been
a little bit faster flight. If it's so takeoff to crashing is faster. That's what
I was thinking. It was just it was just a little too close to that whole engine thing catching on fire.
And I have to, so for me, whenever I hear a story like that, I'm almost relieved in the sense that I think it's a good time to get on a plane, because if something like that happens, it's big news. It really is, we talked about it is the safest way to travel, and those things are rare, but they just freak everybody out because who wants to go out that way? But when I personally hear those stories, I think, all right, what are the chances that something like this is going to happen again? What are the chances that there's going to be some type of big aviation problem or catastrophe on the heels of what just happened? So, and not that yours was necessarily catastrophic, but you got to be thinking, what the fuck? What are the odds of this?
Oh, it's catastrophic to my schedule. We still had a lot of shit to do. We land, then we got to get the rental car, then we got to get. There's 4 of us, right? And just a lot of luggage. 2 weeks, it was way too much luggage. But then we need to go to Costco, because you got to get. You got to
eat.
You do have to stock up, huh?
You got to eat, and now you build up your appetite.
By the time we're going to get here, there's no, I will say there's a lot more food delivery options here now than there used to be. So they've got that figured out. Not all the restaurants are open. So there's some things that are different, but all in all, it looks like it's going to be a little easier to maneuver, doing what you want to do here than it was on. Remember, that was Marriott and that was Oahu. This is fully a different county. Right, this is Maui County.
Yeah, every island's its own county.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Maui, and the 2, Lanai and what's the other one?
Kauai.
Yeah, no, not Kauai. It's just the one nobody lives on.
Molokai.
Yeah, Molokai.
Only the lepers live there.
That's Maui County. Those 3
I see.
islands. Anyway, so that's good. I guess some big news on the political scene. What do you feel like talking about?
Well, I was going to ask you. You sent me some pictures, and you looked so relaxed, and so I wasn't sure if you were actually following the news or
Let's see what little bit of news I have. Because it hasn't been much.
When you do you still get your talking points paper when you're on vacation or no?
Yeah, I have a secret feed through MSNBC. So I can, if I tune in MSNBC and put in a certain code, I can get all that stuff.
So the big criticism, obviously, that I've heard multiple times in the last couple of days is because leave it to the opposing party. This is what I love about politics. Leave it to the other side to find something to criticize, right? Because that's the name of the game. You can't leave it alone. So now the big thing is we're criticizing. I say we. The opposing side to the Democrats, they are criticizing Biden because he's, not coming out and doing a press conference. And they're saying all of his predecessors have done a press conference within the first, 30 days. And why won't Biden take any questions? Are you hearing this story?
Not really. Not really. I mean, because, they're running a daily briefing, during the week at the press room. So, I mean, that's kind of their job. So
yeah, he's.
I haven't heard it though.
Because obviously the concern is this weekend at Bernie's over here? I mean, is this guy a corpse? Are we propping him up? And he has made remarks. He loves to read from his teleprompter, but I guess he's not taking questions. And there was an event, I want to say it was sometime last week, where he said something like, "Okay, I'm now." He read his prepared remarks, and then he said, "Okay, I'll take questions." And then they cut his mic off or something. So.
Oh yeah.
There's no.
Well, I mean, he did a town hall type thing a week ago, like the week before we left. So I don't know. That's here's the possible answer. He's busy, unlike our former.
Well, how
president.
come whenever they said that about Trump, what was Trump's schedule? Trump wakes up very early in the morning, starts working. I think this is what it said, right? Instead of having like the time and each activity, it said. Mr. Trump wakes up very early and he begins working. Mr. Trump works very long hours, and then Mr. Trump goes to bed very late after he's worked very long hours. Something like that was his schedule.
Exactly, because they put out a daily schedule. There's never anything on it. It's a funny thing about that. Not to spend too much time harping on President Fucktard, but
you're still referring to him as president.
Yeah, well, I mean, he gets that title, and until he's former President Fucktard. So
well, he is the former president, but
he is the former president. That's really.
But your girlfriend Jen Psaki, because she wasn't on my radar at all. I don't follow who these press secretaries are, but
right.
Give her a fair shake. Let's see if she can handle the load of the job. Let's see, and she's not bad to look at either. I'm sure you much prefer her over Strokeface. But how is she going to handle the job? Is she going to be, taking any tough questions or whatever? But she basically said what you said, that this fucking guy's busy. Let's see if you think she handled this question.
Right.
5 days into the Biden presidency, and he has yet to hold a presser. At this point in past presidencies, every president, from Reagan had addressed reporters, some of them multiple times. So why the delay, and when can we expect the president to hold a press conference?
Well, first, as all of you know, the president takes questions several times a week. He took questions actually twice yesterday, which is an opportunity for the people covering the White House to ask him about whatever news is happening on any given day. We look forward to holding a full press conference in the coming weeks before the end of the month, and we're working on setting a final date for that, and as soon as we do, we will let you all know. But this president came in during a historic crisis, two historic crises, a pandemic like the country had not seen in decades and decades, and an economic downturn that left 10 million people out of work. So I think the American people would certainly understand if his focus and his energy and his attention has been on ensuring we secure enough vaccines to vaccinate all Americans, which we will do by the end of May, and then pushing for a rescue plan that will provide direct checks to almost 160 million Americans. That's where his time, energy, his focus has been. But in the meantime, he takes questions multiple times a week and looks forward to continuing to do that. And as soon as we have a press conference set, we'll let you know.
So there's a lot there, but did you hear that part? We're all going to get the vaccine by the end of May?
Couldn't hear the question. The answer was clear.
Yeah, the question was, you can't hear it because everyone is forced to wear masks. That whole scam. But okay, that's a whole separate issue. No, they basically said, hey, how come he's not doing a press conference? And that's why, I teed it up by saying that this reporter basically said all of your predecessors, I think they referenced back to Reagan, have all held a press conference within the first 30 days. We're now on day, 40-something, and we haven't heard from Biden. What's going on, and is he going to do one? So she came out basically and said, we are going to schedule one, which I thought almost gave credence to the question, which is, yeah, we're aware that he really hasn't done one where he's, sat here and taken questions off the cuff and provided answers. It sounded like they were saying he was going to schedule one, but she did say, well, he does talk to the press and give answers, and he's busy, solving all the world's problems, that, we're dumped on his lap, and he's the savior, and now we're all going to get the vaccine by the end of May. So I don't think she was reading either. I think that one she actually just answered. So,
I don't think, if she has technical information that's part of an answer to a question, we talked about this before, she has a folder. And
yeah, she'll circle back to the book.
Yes, circle back. So far, for me, she's doing everything the press. She's probably the best press secretary I've ever seen. Now, prior to the stupid cavalcade of nitwits that Trump had up there, when he had somebody up there, when they actually did press briefings, she's by far and away the best.
When do you think the role of the press secretary really became, a prominent role where people know who that person is?
That's a good question. There've always been a press secretary. They've
Right.
always ran the daily briefings. Daily briefings.
Do you remember any of Clinton's press secretaries?
Well, Clinton's George Stephanopoulos was his press secretary. So
Was he the whole time?
That went on to be a good.
Well, that's a good example. But he has a whole career outside of it now.
Yeah, 8 years is a long time. I don't know that he was the press secretary the whole time. And I'm trying to remember. Usually they have multiple people anyway.
You get burned out, and there's I think it crushes your soul because that job requires you to, eat a lot.
Well, the questions in the press briefings in the briefing room that I've seen, I'm getting a pretty regular feed on my social media stuff of Jen Psaki taking questions from obviously from reporters that are obviously from OAN or Newsmax or Fox, and how she handles them. And those questions are always, full of ill will and so forth. But
the same thing happened with Trump when he would get questions. When they would get questions from CNN, everything was designed to try to make him look bad.
There's a huge difference.
What's the difference?
The questions that Trump got from CNN or Kristen Welker or anybody that was on the left side of the opinion newscasting deal, they were legitimate questions about legitimate issues.
Well, why aren't the questions on the other side legitimate?
Let me finish. They were legitimate questions about legitimate issues that President Trump did not want to answer. So that's when he started calling them fake news, and that was always the answer. You're from a terrible network. You're blah, 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 whatever, the bullshit. And that's not happening. So, yeah, there are questions coming from obvious opponents of President Biden in this administration, but they're being handled by Jen Psaki in a completely different way, in an appropriate way.
Are the questions being asked in an appropriate way?
The questions are stupid questions, right? So that's another.
Like, is he going to hold a press conference? Shouldn't they have just come out and said, that's a legitimate question. That's fine. And I didn't hear any vitriol in it, but there's been plenty of them. And I personally think that Jen Psaki is doing a good job of handling them. She often often the questions are something like, well, and they don't usually put it that way. President Trump has come out and said blah, 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 and that you should, blah, blah, especially like about the border. And Jen Psaki's typical answer is that, well, we don't really take guidance from the former president. So yeah, and that's a good answer.
Right?
But don't you think? Back to your point about the type of questions that the Trump team would get. I think you're right in the sense that they clearly tried to dodge questions. They didn't want to give any type of credibility to those networks, so they would say things like fake news or that's irrelevant or whatever, and then we'd have a tantrum and stop having press conferences altogether.
Yeah,
but you want to see them take the hard questions. And I think if the questions come from a place of trying to get to the answer, it shouldn't matter who the source is or how difficult the question might answer. That's your job. And I for one, I'll be curious to see how this develops, both with Jen Psaki and her job, and Biden in particular, because he's the great unifier, right? I mean, this was his whole pitch and his inauguration speech, that he's going to be the president for all people and not just the ones who voted for him. So we'll see how he handles questions that are coming from the other side.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, Travis, because for me, I mean, they're doing everything that I really wanted them to do and I really expect them to do. We're still in the first 100 days as far as that goes. That's completely meaningless, but it is some kind of benchmark. And I mean, they've had, really the relief bill thing's going to be on Biden's desk before I get back.
So did we?
That's a pretty big accomplishment right there.
Did they ended up? What, they took out the minimum wage out of that bill? Is that how they're getting it through?
Took out the minimum wage, yeah, and
it's still 1.9 trillion.
It is, and there's some, you're getting some. Here's the thing here's the new Republican tactic for handling stuff, since there are some things now that they really can't control, like this, and so they're just. And this is a pattern established by the former administration. So they're just lying about what's in the bill. I mean, they're just straight up saying things that are untrue, and they don't care anymore.
Like what? Because I heard a couple of things, but what are you referring to?
Like there's hardly any money in it for COVID relief.
That's true. I've put that information out there.
That is not true. Just saying it doesn't make it true.
No, reading it makes it true.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. No.
Well, I think here's why I made that statement, is because most of the things in the bill, like, for example, it's just misleading when you say COVID relief, because a lot of that stuff, I don't know how many different programs or whatever, right? But it's not 1.9 trillion for one thing. It's carved out, and there's money for this, money for that. I don't know how many different things there are. Yeah, but not all of it takes effect right away. Some of it is, happens in 2 years. Some of it has to do with things that the Democrats were pushing even before COVID. That's why people look through it and say, well, wait a minute, did this really get developed because of COVID relief?
Well, that's that's just tough shit, because they're when you look at what the Democrats want out of this bill, they want programs and money to fix problems that have arisen or been revealed by the COVID situation, right? And so, a lot of this is racial inequity. A lot of this is poverty issues that also stem around that, for the most part. There's a lot to it. I mean, $1.9 trillion. It's not what I mean. When you make a criticism like that, it's just misleading and disingenuous. Not you, but when the Republicans.
I think
your opinion, as far as I'm concerned, about whether they put the bill together right or not. But to say that the bill does not provide relief for issues that have arisen, that's just not true.
Yeah, that's right. A statement like that would not be true. But to say 1.9 trillion is all for COVID relief, that's also not true. And I think that's why people argue and pick it apart. You're never going to get these people to agree. But that's why I think, we've talked about this before, I can't stand the fact that when our government votes on things to spend money, that there's multiple things. Like, one vote should mean one thing, right? Like in our work and associations and things that we do where we have to actually vote on something to get it done, you wouldn't lump a billion things together. It's, hey, we want to do this, vote it, stamp it. You want to do that? Let's have a new vote, stamp that. It just complicates the problem.
I don't disagree with that, but unfortunately the reality of legislating is that it takes so much to get it through, and rightly so, because I don't want anybody in the government willy-nilly spending $1.9 trillion on something that's it's not part of the normal course of events, right? Without COVID, none of this shit would be in the budget, or a lot of it wouldn't be, right? Wouldn't be being authorized by Congress, but it is. I mean, it is there, and it needs to happen. We don't have time to take each part of this and run it through the legislative process. So unfortunately, that just doesn't work.
From what I understand, you can't even read this thing. Like, the whole bill is like, it would take you 3 months to even read it all. From start to finish. How do you even know what's in it?
Well, they have staffs.
How many trees would you kill to read what's in the whole COVID relief bill if you had to print it out?
You have to, the good news is I haven't had to print out any transcript of any nonsense that's been said by anybody in this administration. I was getting to the point where I was running out of paper and ink at home, printing out transcripts from ridiculous horseshit that was coming out of the Trump administration, right? I looked at it the other day and I threw it all away. I'm like, oh my God, I got 24 pages of shit from a phone call here. Just let the lawyers take care of it. That's my motto. And it's coming. So what
about the other stuff in this bill that I've heard? And I don't know if I haven't had time to research it, but they're saying that the stimulus checks are going to go to prisoners and illegal aliens. And so this is the Republicans' last-ditch effort to block it.
That's idiotically stupid to say that. Of course they're not going to illegal aliens. That's ridiculous.
What about prisoners? Have you heard that
illegal aliens don't have Social Security numbers. See, that's the kind of straight-up lie and misinformation that we all need to be wary of. So I'll let you. I'm happy that you have the right to repeat it. But
here's what I read about that part, because the headline was prisoners and illegal aliens, and so I read, there was like a short little article, but what it said about illegal aliens is what you just said. You don't have a Social Security number. However, they're lumping, if you came here with a work visa. Let's say you were granted the privilege to come here and work, and you had a work visa, and you therefore applied for a Social Security number, and then that expired at the end of your period that you were supposed to be here. You still have that Social Security number, but maybe you aren't legally, you're not allowed to be here legally anymore. You just haven't left, and so therefore they're qualifying that as an illegal alien. You biting?
Sounds like
no.
No, it sounds like nonsense to me.
What about prisoners?
I don't know anything about prisoners.
Should we give stimulus checks to prisoners?
If they're American citizens and they have a need, I don't know that that's the case one way or the other. I don't know. The only money that prisoners can have that I know of is what they earn in prison. It's like you can't bring in $10,000. Well, let's say, what's the number? $1,400 or something?
I think so. I think it's another 14. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a prisoner. Joe Prisoner can get a check and have $1,400 in his cell.
Yeah, but can you? But even still, like, let's say you.
I don't know. I mean, everybody that qualifies according to the thing, I assume gets it, and I don't know.
Well, who qualifies is who they say qualifies. But let's say you were out of jail last year.
He's going to test me small amounts. Who cares, really?
But let's say you worked last year. You filed a tax return. You weren't in jail. You find yourself in jail this year. So, because I think a lot of the stimulus stuff is based on your prior year tax return or whatever, your income levels. So let's say you find yourself in jail this year and you filed a tax return last year. Should you get stimulus money direct deposited into your account? I mean, I know you can't take it in your cell, but can you have it in your account and have access to it? Can you even spend money in jail? I don't even know. Do you have your debit card?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Where do you get your razor blades and soap?
Huh?
Where do you get the razor blades?
Razor blade, pins, and toothbrush handles. So right. Make sure. Yeah, well, small business has been hurt even in prison. So, if they're not able to buy toothbrushes so they can shave them down and turn them into knives, then the stimulus money will help them get their businesses back on foot. They're inside prison. Yeah, because you are a capitalist, true, and you support all markets, including the black market, inside prison cells. Well, I think the currency was cigarettes, but I think they don't let. I don't think they let prisoners smoke anymore. Do you know anything about that? I really don't. I mean, I try not to know a lot about prisons. I don't want to find out firsthand. Yeah, that's right.
But prison reform. This has been part of the.
I almost went there because of the pool incident.
I know you were going to find out. Hawaiian prison with the Samoans.
Honolulu police are notoriously not fun to deal with. So Debbie's pulled me back from situations a couple of times with police here in Hawaii. It's just like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, we don't want you to find out.
Well, Orange County Jail is one thing.
But I like the fact that you're willing to do it. You're willing to sacrifice your freedom for your happiness. You're like, fuck it. Take me to a Hawaiian jail. I don't care. I'm not getting out of the pool.
Let's not exaggerate. I didn't go quite that far. I got out of the pool. I got out of the pool. I told the guy to leave me alone and go do your job. Yes. He goes, hey, what's your name? None of your fucking business.
Yeah, don't give him a real name.
That's how it ended, right? So I don't need to tell you my name. I'm getting out.
Did you cave? Did you give him any name?
No.
Do you have a go-to alias?
Travis Swope.
Yeah, that's good. Mine's Mike Watkins.
I got news for you. That's scarier for me than I think it is.
You really don't have one? You haven't found yourself in a situation where you've had to use an alias?
I know. I can't think. Well, the answer is no, but what kind of situation would that be? I'm not sure I could think of one.
Well, usually what happens is the first situation that arises that you feel the need to create an alias, you kind of keep it, and then therefore in the future, should you need to use it again, you don't skip a beat. It's right on the tip of your tongue. Like mine is Timmy Cheville.
Nice.
Timmy Cheville.
Timmy Cheville.
It's real. Timmy Cheville.
All right.
You know how I got that name?
No, but I'm dying to know.
So I told you, I used to be a huge golf fan. I would go and watch all these golf tournaments. And so the tournament down in San Diego at Torrey Pines, one time I was walking around in the TV van, like the CBS truck where the satellites were. I'd had a few beers, maybe some Bloody Marys or whatever. I was feeling like, whatever. So I don't want to say I broke into the TV van, but I let myself in, and it was cool. There's all this equipment, and this is how they, broadcast the show, right?
And nobody there.
Huh?
Nobody in it? Nobody in the van?
I think the guy was taking a smoke break or something. So I go in there, and I'm like looking around, I'm touching some knobs and shit. And then the guy comes around the corner. He's like, can I help you? And I go, I'm looking for my dad, Jim. He works here. And they go, what's his name? And I said, Jim Cheville. I'm his son, Timmy Cheville. He goes, no.
That's good. That's very convincing.
And so it just kind of came out. And that was probably 20 years ago. So now every time I need it, it just comes right out. Or even if I'm like waiting for a table, what's your name? Timmy Cheville. And it sounds better that it's Timmy, not Tim, because I'm in my 40s and I still want to be called Timmy.
Yeah, Timmy. Jimmy, Bobby. Oh my God. Well, one time when I was a kid in high school, I lied to the cops about where I got some marijuana. And they had my license, so they knew who I was.
Well, possession's 9/10 of the law. Does it matter where you got it? It was in your pocket.
Right. They're like, we want the name of the pusher. I'm 17. I'm like, yeah. Roger Goldberg. He lives up on Shenandoah Street. This was in Ladera Heights. And
the cops are like, there's no fucking Goldbergs here.
Well, the actual truth of that is that there probably was.
So he bought it?
They let me go. That's all they wanted. They never called my parents. I encountered these cops twice. And one time they pulled me, another guy, and two girls over. I was driving, and they pulled us over, got us out of the car. These are LA County sheriffs, right, up on Slauson in Ladera Heights. Pull us over, get me out of the car, take my cigarette, pull my cigarettes out of my pocket, tear the whole pack up, go, I'm looking for, see if you've got marijuana cigarettes in there. Takes my arm, bends it, twists it so that my face goes down onto the ground, right? And then puts the handcuffs on, right. And while I'm standing there, I'm shitting my pants, right? I'm just like, oh, this is it. I'm getting arrested. and that they found a bag of pot and cheap commercial shit back then. And then the other guy in the car, he's making this really better. So this is one large black cop and one large white cop, no hair involved on either of their heads. And so you know the kind of cops you're talking about there. And so the other guy is going, hey, fuck you, pig. I'm going to do everything from acid to aspirin, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And I'm like, shut your mouth. Shut the fuck up. You're going to get us killed. And so here's the thing. I'm already in the back of the car. And I get, someone's just like wigging out. And that might have been
shit on the seat.
That might have been a little stoned already. And so then I hear calls come in. All units in the vicinity respond, gunshots fired, 30 to 40 use. We were up on the edge of Inglewood, right? So there's some tough LA neighborhoods and stuff around there. So the guy comes over to me, opens the door, he goes, hey, get the fuck out of my car. And I'm like, sure, great. And I can't, it's hard to do because my hands are
you're high.
And I'm freaking out. So I get out, we go through the whole routine with the handcuffs again. So twice my face is in the grass. And they let us go. They go, hey, you can thank your lucky stars, so we've got to go. It was a completely illegal search and seizure. The whole thing was never going to stand up. But
that's back then, those days, though, that's when you really should do an illegal search and seizure, because who could prove it, right? It would be their word against yours. There's no technology then. There's no body cams or dash cams. They would have just said, these fucking punk kids are high.
Their excuse was, so there was a girl in the front seat next to me. We saw her stick something under her seat or reach for a weapon. That's what they said. You were 3 cars back. You can see anything. Oh, here's the good part. I was driving a pink Lincoln Continental. Flesh tone is what they called it back then.
I mean, there's more and more stories in the news about states legalizing marijuana. Don't you think we should just legalize all drugs, right? What is it, a victimless crime? You, almost on your deathbed, on this almost plane crash, if you had the coke, the last thing you'd want to do is possibly survive the plane crash and then get busted for coke. Just fucking,
right, exactly.
What are we talking about?
No, I think I've always been, first off, this is where, my compassion gets a little bit, like when people are wronged by society because of their race or just because of their, if they have poor economic situations for reasons that are sort of out of their control, like, you're in a town where the town depends on a factory and that factory closes because of foolish, wrong, economic policies by the government, and you end up, very poor because of it. I have compassion for you. If you're a drug addict, I don't give a shit. I don't care about you being a drug addict. That is not society's fault, and I don't care what you do. If you want to buy heroin and kill yourself with it, I'm totally okay with it.
Well,
and as far as recreational drugs, obviously, I don't have any strong. I don't do them anymore because I'm too old. I can't recover. But I never thought it was. I would have never done it when I was young if I thought it was morally wrong. So,
and that we talk a lot. We were talking about prisons, but there's this big conversation about prison reform, and I don't have numbers in front of me, but are we assuming that a large portion of the population of people in prison are for drug crimes?
Yeah, and I think a large part of the reason for that, I think this is pretty well known, is because of poor policies instituted by Democrats during the Clinton administration, right? And
is that true? Is that when we saw spikes in levels of incarceration?
Yeah, because it wasn't a progressive or left wing issue that could really get any traction with the American public back then. I don't think that back then Democrats were still probably against drugs. Everybody was against drugs.
Yeah, because Clinton, remember, he didn't inhale. He couldn't back then. He couldn't say that.
That was Clinton.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think that was Clinton number one when he ran the first time. I tried it, but I didn't inhale. And then you fast forward to Obama. I think he was able to say, really without any type of repercussions, that, yeah, of course I smoked weed when I was a kid. Who didn't?
Right. And I think that the drug laws and the mandatory sentencing and things. So, I think we've established pretty clearly that has put a very large number of people of color behind bars for very long periods of time. It also, white people or non-people of color, whatever that leaves behind.
Non-people,
there's also quite a few of them, but there's quite a few more of them, so that makes sense. So, but for all of the people that are doing long jail sentences because of minor, drug infractions, it's just stupid. Why do we want to then have to bear, not that it's a luxury life, but it does cost the American taxpayer a lot of money.
I know.
And it does disenfranchise apparently we managed to disenfranchise one or two entire generations of young people of color by putting them in the system and getting them started. And so, that's a huge topic, and I think it's a fucking waste of time. And I think, when you look at one of the things, I mean, that's a libertarian vibe. That's the first time I've ever been able to remember that goddamn word without struggling.
It's because it's growing on you.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I've always, that's
it's because we've established you like your freedom. You don't want to be told what to do. You don't want to get out of the fucking pool. You like freedom.
It doesn't make it a viable political party, but there are some things that I agree with. And I think that obviously, never been in favor of the way, drug. I mean, it's always been a political thing. It's never been about the issue. It's never been about the problem. And, it's just like, hey, I just saw some article recently. God, where the hell was it? I'm going to say, I don't know, some currently Republican ran state government, and they're going to cut back, 2/3 of the money that had been allocated for needle exchange in their inner cities.
Why are we allocating needle exchange?
Well, because it's
like San Francisco.
It's not San Francisco actually. It's a red, what they're going to call a red state somewhere, and they're going to. But that's going to cause. It's going to cause huge jumps in things that do affect the public, like HIV rates and do I care if you die from an infected needle? But it's going to cause huge burdens on the medical system, because it's not just HIV and hey, if you overdose, good, you're done. That's it. We're done with you. Good. But what's the other disease that you get from sharing needles?
Hepatitis.
Hepatitis, right? Which does cause such debilitating diseases. Then that falls. These people don't have insurance, right? They're not typically productive members of society. So
yeah, I mean that's
we're just sending them into the hospital system with hepatitis. So.
But you're in favor of giving them needles?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Whatever. You just have to look. Why would you not be in favor of that?
There's
cheap to supply the needles. I mean, the cost.
But where do you draw the line? Do you want to give alcohol to drunks?
I don't think that's even a reasonable comparison.
It's an excellent comparison. Why is it not?
Give them a clean bottle.
A clean bottle?
Give them a clean glass to drink out of.
You mean a non-used one? I mean, listen. If people, if you want to do drugs, that's great with me. I'm not a big fan of putting people in jails either for drug use. I'm not a big fan. I like to go, my spectrum is this: freedom, 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 and then death. So it's like not a lot in the middle, not, we're going to punish you. This is a misdemeanor. This is a felony. You're going to do some prison time. No, you're just fucking free until we need to kill you because you no longer deserve to be in society.
Can you repeat that phrase again one more time for me? What was it? Freedom, 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 then death?
Yeah.
Or then leave a freedom out?
I don't know how many freedoms I said, but basically it's like 2 or 3, maybe 4 freedoms and then death.
Yeah. Well, we'll hear it back on the playback, but I think that's going to make a hell of a sign.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on, what are you going to do? It's fucking ridiculous. There's no, we're not reforming people in prison. We're, and I get it if the drug use or whatever turns into other crimes, murder, you're stealing shit. But just the drug use itself, I don't think we should be putting people in jail for. But I don't think you should contribute to it. I mean, look at a place like San Francisco. It's a fucking shithole now.
Well, I mean, I don't see needle exchange and the reasons why you do that as contributing to it. I'm not for supplying people clean heroin or something like that.
What if we supplied them the drugs, but we laced it with shit that kind of just, maybe we lace it with COVID? Can we do that? Can we put COVID in with the drugs?
Yeah.
Wipe them out.
You wonder why there's some people don't want to take the vaccine.
Right. They don't know what's in it. Are these clean needles? I don't know.
Oh my God. Well,
I don't know. It's we've said this before, as far as things seem to have calmed down a little bit, but they're not really. I mean, all the issues are still there. We're still trying to figure this shit out. And I don't know. What was the other story I read about? There's some movement on a voter bill. I'm not sure if the House has drafted and passed a bill. It all has to do with increasing
voting rights.
Yeah, voting rights. That's right. And then, but Biden is also going to sign some executive order. I'm not sure if it's in conjunction with this House bill or where we are with that. But obviously there's this need to address and correct what we saw at this last election. So, I mean, I get it. I'm in favor of it. We need to have more eligible people to vote, just not voter fraud. So you got to be able to strike a balance in there. You got to have common sense. I don't know what's in the bill. Are you following that story?
Well, not what's in their bill, because it's at this point it's just in the House, and I don't think I got to dig into it much to figure it out. But I mean, what we're experiencing, Travis, is the aftermath of the election, and this is mostly in the swing states that were involved, because they mostly have Republican-ran state houses. And like Pennsylvania, for example, what's the guy's name for Pennsylvania? The state attorney, no, the Secretary of State, Ratzenlaff.
I think, didn't we play a clip one time? I forget his name.
Yeah. He's the guy that would not, he's the guy that Trump called that asked for
Right. He said, find me these other votes. He said, they're not there.
The guy stood up and wouldn't do it, but that particular person is one of the biggest voter suppression activists in any of these goddamn southern.
So what's the current voter suppression tactics? What are the voter suppression tactics?
There's been like 250 extremely radical state bills in Republican-controlled states, especially the 5 or 6 swing states, to just try to turn back the clock on, especially Georgia, and just have. I mean, if this stuff isn't counteracted with a federal law, and it's just they're just going crazy because they don't want black people to vote in their state, and so I guarantee you, every single bit of this crap about voter ID and the rest of it is just all voter suppression.
But can't you do it all?
Can't
you do it all? Can't you correct all of it? Can't you get, if you start with the basics, right?
I'm going to take a deep breath now.
I told you I could get you riled up.
Try to remain my calm.
And by the way, Georgia, that ended up going to the Democrats anyway. Didn't all of the swing states go to the Democrats when it was all said and done?
All the ones that counted. But in those states in particular, the Republican state houses are passing draconian voter suppression laws, cutting down early voting, killing mail-in voting. I mean, they're going crazy, Travis.
Don't you think we should have one policy throughout the whole country?
Well, I mean, one of the things it depends what you're talking about. The policy throughout the country should be that you're not allowed to do anything that results in suppressing the vote, especially among people of color, which is what this is all about and all it's all about. right? And let's just be real. There's no fucking problem. There is no issue about voter fraud. There never has been. There's not a shred of evidence that there ever has been. And I don't care how many times you couch this kind of legislation in voters, I don't even know what the fuck they call it. It's just, they are just different ways to suppress the vote among minorities, whether it's gerrymandering or whatever the issue is. Right?
And basically, Republicans, I guess here's the thinking, right? The more people you allow to vote, whether it's remotely, by mail, however we figure it out into the future, that the thinking is that favors the Democrats. So the Republicans want to try to do anything that they can to keep things the way they are, because that gives, in their mind, a chance for them to win, right? I mean, that's kind of the general thinking.
And that's all correct, except the part where you said they're trying to keep things the way they are. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it. They're trying to turn back mostly, and this will mostly have to do with mail-in voting, right? That they're trying to turn that back because that's what cost them the election in these swing states, and they're going to do whatever they can at the state level to suppress that vote.
But don't you think? I mean, a lot of the stuff with the mail-in voting had to do less. I'm talking about this most recent election, had less to do with the voting by mail than it had to do with the counting and the dates and when it had to be in and how far past the election day you could count it and all that. Shouldn't it just be the same for every state? So whatever it is, everybody can vote by mail. This is how you do it. This is how long afterwards we'll count it, and whatever, right? It's the same throughout all 50 states, so there's no fuckery. Doesn't that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had the Voting Rights Act for a long time that kept the southern states under control.
That's right? From the 60s, right?
Yeah, and that should have never changed. That should have never been dropped, right? That should have never been let to go repeal or whatever the hell they did with it, because those states are still guilty of the same thing they were always guilty of, right? These southern states, they just don't, this is a ridiculous subject that I hope people are seeing. I think they're seeing it for what it is. And we'll just have to see. I think if the Biden administration can sustain some kind of legislation that's going to equal the playing. Here's my only caution about when you say we want to make everything the same. One of the great strengths of our voting system is that it is done differently across the country, right? And I think we need to separate out the idea that
But give me an example of why that's a strength.
You can't attack the voting system from the outside if there's 52 different ways of doing it.
Don't say 52 yet.
Well, remember they vote in Puerto Rico, right? And whatever, Tonga or whatever it is, right? So there are more than 52. There are states, around 52 different ways, right?
But give me an example of why the various voting processes throughout these states and regions. Why is that a strength to have them different?
Well, because some places are going to hand count all the votes. Other places are going to use computer systems like the ones we've heard so much about that are suing the holy living shit out of Trump's, out of OAN and all those guys. Some people use paper, some people don't. It's just if everybody is doing it exactly the same way, regardless of the time frames for getting the counting done, there should be every vote that gets cast in a reasonable manner, there should be plenty of time to get it counted. That's all that stuff about 3 days later, that's all bullshit. And
yeah, but if one state is hand counting and the other state has a computer, you would assume that the hand counting states are going to take longer.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think that, look, mail in or some type of remote voting is just the way it's going to have to be going forward. I mean, it's just, or I don't even care. Don't do remote. Have a week to vote, right? Why do we think you have to vote? Every vote has to be cast on the same day.
That's retarded too. I know. Why not just say the polls open? I agree. That's retarded. Why you just say the voting starts November 1st, and it closes November 10th or something like that.
Reasonable. Right. And we do have that in a lot of places. We have early vote in many states. I don't have the statistics either, but we do that. And one of the and that is exactly the kind of thing that's being attacked by Republican state houses right now. If they had a 2-week early voting period, they're killing that. They're getting rid of it. Those are the steps that they're taking to suppress the vote. So,
but is there also? I think we agree with a lot of that, you and I. But is there no merit in the other side of the argument? And let me just say, I personally don't think that there's issues with voter fraud. But is there no merit in the point that you want to identify who's eligible to vote and whose ballot you're counting?
I think that's. I mean, we have a registration process and so forth, and there's just zero evidence that any significant fraud of any kind has happened.
I know, but that's not the question I asked. I'm not suggesting there's fraud, but like you said, we have a registration process. I think that's at the DMV. Does that still do it at the DMV?
No. I mean, there are multiple ways you can register. I don't know.
Are you automatically registered?
No, you have to register.
Well, you're 18, right? You have to be 18.
You have to be 18 to vote. Yeah.
So you have to
register in the parking lot at your supermarket. Yeah, that's where I've always registered.
Well, I think you can do it online too, right?
Don't know, because look, been registered before there wasn't online. So,
but here's what I'm saying: it's 2021. All the young kids who turned 18 this year and will turn 18 every year in the election cycle, I think you can register online. So that's how they're going to do it.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, so that's all good, but there's got to be a way, and I think they do. Your Social Security number, or they vet you somehow to know that that's you. But what I'm saying is, when it comes time to actually voting, don't you want to have some, for lack of a better term, roster of here's the 330 million people who are eligible to vote in this country, and John Smith sent in his ballot, okay, boom, we counted that one, and so on and so forth. There's no merit into that idea that we know who's who and whose ballot we counted?
I don't know, maybe, but nobody that espouses that is espousing that for those reasons. It's all just a cover-up for voter suppression. Voter ID is a way to disenfranchise large portions of the population that don't have easy access, that don't drive, don't have driver's licenses, don't trust DMVs, whatever, right? And so, you don't need a driver's license to register.
How about this?
ID, but
new process. It's called a reverse vote. So the idea is the incumbent president automatically keeps his job. You don't have to vote unless you send in a ballot to remove him. So it's the reverse vote, and you're only counting the people that want him out. What do you think?
No, you're not going to get your king in that way. It's not going to happen.
You still have term limits, though.
Oh God. Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think the states to watch are Pennsylvania and Georgia, Nevada,
which is ironic, Arizona. Because those states. I mean, Georgia in particular.
Yep.
Everybody other than Trump. I mean, Georgia was pretty clear that it was going to go to Biden. I mean, shit, they even took Georgia, both of those Senate runoff votes.
Yeah, that fucking bastard Kemp, you want to talk about stolen elections. He was the Secretary of State who ran the election that he won. That's corruption at the highest level. That's so typically Southern and typically Georgian, right? So keep your eye on Georgia, keep your eye on Pennsylvania, even though Ratzlaff or whatever his name was stood up to Trump. That's because there was too much light on that process, right? He resented the federal government telling them how to run their election. But it's not like Pennsylvania is now the guardian of voter rights. Far from it, right? Those states that I just named, they're the ones to watch, and they're the ones that need to be oversaw by the federal government.
So who's
elections?
Where are we with this thing? Is it the Democrats have this voter bill and the Republicans are trying to block it, or do the Republicans have their own version of a bill they're trying to get done? Do you know?
I don't know. My impression is that there is only there is some kind of voter right bill, but it's kind of in the queue, right? Everything has just kind of been standing by until they can get the COVID bill through and get that done.
I asked that because I'm just wondering if you were to apply all of the things that the Republicans are saying about the voter bill, or what they would, whatever they're trying to do or whatever they're trying to block, if you were to apply that to this last election, I wonder what the result would have been, if it would have impacted it, or would it have still, if the outcome would have been the same, would the outcome have been what we got anyway?
Say that question one more time. Sorry, I had a momentary cut out there.
Momentary lapse in judgment.
Yeah.
I'm just
as a Democrat, I never have those. But,
of course, yes. I'm just wondering though what the net effect would be if the Republicans got some of this shit done. Would it have made an impact on the election anyway?
Yeah,
it would have.
Yeah, for sure.
How so?
Voter suppression. So I'm glad that now you've come around to see my side of it, and you think that all voter suppression should be stopped. So.
I do. I mean, I'm not taking that position. I don't want voter suppression. I do think this is what I'm ultimately saying is that everything gets thrust into these buckets of just because the messenger is saying one thing that all of the ideas are bad. I don't know. I'm not suggesting that we need to overhaul completely the voter system or how we do things in this country. There's a lot of it that doesn't make sense to me. There's a lot of weaknesses that certainly, made themselves visible this last election. There's a lot of it that clearly one side is deliberately trying to manipulate to benefit them. So I get all that. I'm just saying if you were to tear it down, strip it down to the basics and say, what does the voting system for the United States in the 21st century look like? There's some legitimate changes that you should want to put in there. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Well, I mean, as long as changes that are made to the voting system are not based on, trying to create situations that limit access to voting or make it harder for, specific parts of the population to vote, then I don't have a problem with it. But it's not as simplistic as the proponents of voter ID would like to make it. So.
Yeah, it should just be faster. We should utilize technology, and it should be more secure. Everybody should agree with that because that's how we live our lives, right? Every transaction we make, you want to make sure that it's secure. Your credit card's not going to get stolen. That you have safety, and that you just want to make sure that shit's not going to get fucked up. That's all we're saying.
Right.
So I don't know.
God. So have you got me wound up yet? Almost got me there with
well, let me throw canceling at you. I mean, what we haven't mentioned, now Dr. Seuss is getting canceled. Did we mention that? It's fucking ridiculous.
That is awesome. Dr. Seuss. Yeah, I haven't really followed that. I can only say if there's racist shit I'm not a big Dr. Seuss reader. So if there's racist shit in Dr. Seuss, they should get rid of it. I mean, something I don't even know when Dr. Seuss, when that shit was written. It had to be a long time ago because I read it in first grade. So
what was it? There was another, I saw somebody put out there about a Dr. Seuss title, something like "Put on your mask or I'll put my foot up your ass" or some shit.
It's a Dr. Seuss?
No, it was a reference to Texas opening and taking the mask mandate out, and
No, I mean, that might be worth talking about for a minute. What do you think is going on in Texas? So let me put something out there if we've got a couple more minutes. Are you happy that this asshole Governor Abbott has struck down all the mask stuff throughout the whole state and just say, hey, fuck it, it's over, reopen? Are you happy about that?
I wouldn't say that happy one way or the other. I think it's the right decision. Yeah. And by the way, he's not saying it's over. He's saying we're taking away the mandate. We're not saying to our people that you have to wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. As far as I know, the businesses can still decide if they want, if they're going to require their patrons to come in to wear a mask. So I think that's right.
But that's really, yeah. So do you, I mean, I don't know how much you know about Abbott, or the whole situation, but do you think that by some stretch of the imagination that he has thought this through and that's the answer he's come up with is the best way to go forward at this juncture in that process? Or do you think that since he fucked up so bad during this, that he looked so bad after this disaster in Texas with the weather and the grid, that this isn't just this isn't just some maneuver to try to, hey, look, I'm the one that took away the mask man. I mean,
it's hard not to consider that, right? I mean, it's the same thing as we talked about in California because, Newsom got caught with his pants down.
Well, I don't know but here's the thing. I don't know what that has to do with California. Meaning, I don't know what that has to do with Texas, right?
What I'm saying is, to your point, yeah, it's hard not to consider that as one of the reasons why he would do it, in the sense that he's trying to save face and show, that he's done something great to take the pressure off the power issue. And I'm saying the parallel is something similar to what we saw in California. You have to consider that as an option. So do I think that's why he did it? I don't know, but it's possible, But the other part of it is this has been partisan since the very beginning. So the other thing I was thinking is that Biden is the one that came out and said, we want masks for 100 days minimally, and we're not 100 days in. And so and Texas isn't the only one. I think it was Louisiana. Is it Alabama? There's like maybe 3 or 4 of them now that have removed their state mandated mask mandates. So are these guys just trying to go against Biden's 100-day order? I mean, so how much of it is related to that? I don't know, but I don't know, dude. You know me.
All of it.
Yeah, but the whole thing. I mean, if you ask me that question, it's not just it's not a microcosm of that one question. It's the whole thing. I don't think we ever should have shut down. I think this whole thing was an overreaction. I think I was thinking about it today because we're over a year into this. If somebody said, why are we wearing masks? I would say because a year ago the entire world lost their mind, and I just think that it should always be about individual decisions. We all make decisions every day. Our level of comfort of our own safety. And so if I'm in favor of a business saying, we want you to wear a mask before you can come in here, we're not going to serve you. I support that. That's their right. And if the people don't like it, then you don't go in there. You don't eat. So again, the mask mandate, and I'm not an expert on all these states. I don't know if the mask mandate is just that. In California, I think ours was wrapped up into what we always called full lockdown. I mean, we've had multiple different color codes and everything in between, and what we could do, our activities were all limited, and so that also came with quarantines and mask mandates. I'm not familiar with Texas if everything was open but you had to wear a mask, and so I don't really know. But it sounds like they're saying, hey, you can still go about your business and you don't have to wear your mask. I don't know if they're limiting capacity in places. I'm really not sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to get there at some point, right? So let me ask a question to you. Do we think at some point we're all going to say, is the idea that we're going to say no more masks at this point in time, whatever it is, case counts are down, enough people have been vaccinated, whether that's this year, next year, 3 years from now, and then boom, on this date, it's safe to remove the masks. And I don't think so, as I'm asking you that question. I think regionally, and not just in this country, but all around the world, people are going to say, we're going to lift this restriction, we're going to lift that restriction. And I just see some level of controversy no matter how this plays out. I don't see where we are now ultimately ending without some type of controversy. I just don't. Do you?
Well, is that the question?
Yes. I don't know.
I think I could agree with that. I mean, I don't. I think it would be hard to see the transition from following. I think I think if you have a brain, you simply look to the CDC now that the Trump administration is no longer fucking it up, and you look to the CDC, the medical experts, and you follow their advice. Period. Other than that, I think it's stupid not to.
How many people in this country got COVID now? I know the deaths surpassed 500,000, but what's the case count? Is it like 30 million or something?
Well, yeah, it's right at 30 million, I think.
And
so, the death rate is, 1.8 and
1.8 what percent?
Yeah, of the people that get it, right?
And we've already debated this, but
30 million got it, 525,000 are dead. That's 1.8%. And so whatever. I mean, talk about lines. There's another line. Like, what does it have to be to care? Does it have to be 5% or is 1.8? Is that enough to be concerned?
But that number is no. You should be concerned, but everybody should be concerned about their own safety. What they think. I mean, 1.8%. That's a misleading number in the sense that that's the percentage of the people who died based on the case counts, but that's not the percentage of the population. And so another way to say it is, without discounting any of it or rehashing all this because we've done that, but another way to say it is. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about you because you took your COVID test to go to Hawaii and had,
2 of them.
Right, and your entire party that you traveled with did. If one of you tested positive, even if you weren't ill, I don't know if you guys would have gone. I mean, certainly the person who tested positive,
we're going to leave them behind.
You were going to leave them behind.
Here. Yeah, we had to get one to come to Maui. So, whoever didn't test positive, whoever tested positive was going to have to stay behind, and I don't know where.
But I was thinking about that because then I thought, well, why would you test positive? Because the reality is, a year into this, most people didn't get it. So yes, 500,000 deaths, or we're above that now, and 30 million infections. However, most people don't get this thing. Most people don't get it, and most people don't die from it. That doesn't discount or discredit anything, but just let that sink in for a second. When we look back on this 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and the numbers are going to continue to go up, and we'll look at everything we did right and everything we did wrong, and there'll be plenty of debate about that. But I think what you'll say is, well, at the end of the day, most people dodged a bullet, right? The human civilization went on. It lived. Most people didn't succumb to this thing. So I think it's a different way to look at it. And so you factor all that into what Texas is doing and everything else. I'm just a big fan of not being told what to do. I mean, we already established that. You don't want to be told to get out of the pool. I don't want to be told to wear a mask. I don't want to be told what I can and can't do. I'm not looking to break the law.
Let me put a caveat to that, because we do see a lot of that the same way, right? And I think the way you're characterizing that, especially in view of my pool story and whatever, I've had a gut full of policies, trust me, on this trip, right? I mean, I'm enjoying myself, about half of it to go here, and I'm really having a good time. I'm glad I'm here. But everything that has to do with COVID sucks.
It's tiring.
So all of it. Yeah. And so, there was money spent on tests. I will tell you though, that the second round of tests cost us nothing. Walgreens did it for free. We can believe that.
That's when you went to the other island, you had to do it?
Yeah. So, the test we took to come here cost $90 a piece. So there's $400 nearly dropped right there. And then this test for Walgreens, they will bill your insurance. And if your insurance pays it, great. And if your insurance doesn't pay it, they don't take any money. You never get out of the car. It was pretty good. But at any rate, everything to do with COVID here, coming here and traveling and being here and all the rest of it. And it's all getting old, dude. It's all getting old. But I mean, I think that probably the answer to this is the vaccines. And, we're on a pretty fast track now to about 2 million vaccines a day. And that's a good pace. And I think that's going to make the difference and turn the corner on this and let the masks come off. Because trust me, I'm as anxious to I've worn a mask more during this last week than I have in the whole year.
Exactly.
So, and a couple of things I learned from that. I don't like it any better. Doing it more doesn't make it better.
It does not.
But it does get easier. And I will say that, the whimpering about wearing a mask is just more than I can take from people, right? Just fuck off and put your mask on.
And the mask thing, back to Texas, I think that's also more of them declaring in their own way that COVID is over. I mean, that's you know what I mean? And in some ways, it kind of is, in the sense that, unless there's another variant or another wave, but I mean, here in the Northern Hemisphere, what are we up to? March already? So we're in March. We have, listen, I'm not declaring it over. What I'm saying, it's over. It's going to be over soon.
Here's what I'm saying. No matter what the reality is, this Governor Abbott in Texas is a douche, and that's it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really know much about him other than
describing any kind of.
But you can't. Here's the other thing I was thinking about too. You can't always just kill the messenger. If good ideas are good ideas, it doesn't matter if they've come from bad people. Do you want me to repeat that? It was never a good idea to lock down all of civilization, but we did it anyway. We've lost our minds.
Well, so I think that two things. One, like I started to say, anytime you ascribe any kind of benevolent reasoning to something Governor Abbott does in Texas, you're making a mistake. He's an asshole through and through all the way. And obviously, if you didn't think we should have ever done anything about COVID to begin with, then obviously you don't give a shit whether they take the mask off. But the reality is, we're probably nationally about to turn a corner on the vaccine situation. And I think anything that's done by one of the biggest states in the union, or any state for that matter, that works in opposition to that, whether you're 100% convinced that it was necessary or not, is a fucking mistake. And once again, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about Texas. He doesn't care about people. He only cares about himself. This is 100% politically motivated nonsense. And if you are not correct about the mask stuff and what's been done for COVID, then it could be a huge factor in delaying the recovery nationally. No small amount of people in Texas, right? We're not talking about Montana or something.
Well, listen, unless Texas is a hub where the entire country is going into or out of, that's not going to, magically spread across the rest of the country. But I guess here's the point. If he makes a declaration like that he removes the mask mandate, I have no idea what the compliance is going to be. I don't know what it was before, and I don't know what it's going to be afterwards. Assuming it's political, maybe it's safety. But what are the people in Texas doing?
To put the businesses that you are so concerned about in a compromising position.
How so? What if they say, "Hey, you can't come in here"?
They don't have the state mandate to back them up now.
We don't need that. What happened to no shirt, no shoes, no service?
You do. Yeah, you do need the national. You do need the state mandate. There's no national mandate. Okay,
I know that. But don't businesses have the reserve the right to make you comply with anything they want?
Yeah, but they don't. But they need that state mandate there to back up the uniform application of wearing masks. So if you're a business in Texas, you're going to suffer because you don't have the state to back you up. Even if you want to, you can continue to do it. And several large, companies have publicly stated, hey, we're going to continue requiring masks to come into our building. But why would you take away? It's just all stupid.
Sorry. I mean, we're just diametrically opposed to that. I mean, I guess my point is this. If I was in Texas and I was afraid of my life and the governor said, hey, we're not requiring masks anymore, I wouldn't go out of my house.
In fear for your life?
I wouldn't. Yeah, fear for my life. Hey, there's alligators in that pond. Are you going to go in the pond?
Terrible analogy.
It's not. It's a great analogy. Know the risks. Decide what you're comfortable with. That's what I say.
Freedom,
death. Freedom, death. Exactly.
That's right. Death, that's right. I got it wrong.
I mean, and it's I don't know what remember Florida when they were first getting vaccines, they said, hey, we're going to be a vaccine destination. And I think there was a period of time where they said, if you come here, because they wanted tourism, if you come here, we're going to give you the vaccine. And I think they did that for a while. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but you could literally,
I never heard of that.
Yeah, you could literally go to Florida and get a vaccine. And then, so maybe that sparked tourism. I don't know. So by Texas saying we're going to remove the mask mandate, is that going to bring tourists there? I don't know. But I mean, fuck, do what you want to do. Go where you want to go.
Texas in the first place? I don't understand.
Freedom. 4 freedoms and death. That's why you go to Texas, Alabama, Arkansas. That's 3 freedoms. And then you go to California, and that's death.
No offense, Jason, but Texas, and then an equal sign, insects, unbearable heat, hurricanes, and now COVID.
It's interesting.
COVID.
Remember,
right.
I told you this story before about Republica and Democratica, and how my wife said, "Well, I don't want to live in Republica," and I said, "Well, we still may choose to live in Democratica. We just have to know what the rules are." But I'm surprised by you that you don't like being told what to do, but you kind of do like it. What is that called when you like you want to be tortured? You're like, you want to live in a society where everything they do is, they dictate everything you can do and your every thought and your every movement. Just, I don't know, you just love it. You love to torture yourself.
I'm not even going to respond to that because I know you're true. I mean, where we running out of time, you haven't got my goat enough.
Well, come on. I mean,
yeah, I would like to live in a society where, decisions were based on things that make sense and not ridiculous dogmatic crap.
I still maintain, it's worth repeating a year later, that if COVID, if this happened 15 years ago, I don't think we would have had this mass hysteria and shut down the world and lost our shit. I think it's all driven by social media and fear and just spreading of information, misinformation, but I don't think so. I think people would have been like, oh, it's a really bad flu year. Well, it's not really flu. It's something else. It's this. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's this thing called coronavirus. Comes from China or bats or whatever.
Do you not remember the SARS outbreak, the first one?
Yeah, but we didn't do this.
Nobody heard about SARS. Oh, of course we didn't do this. But nobody heard about SARS and said, oh, it's another kind of flu. That's not the reaction that people had to SARS-1.
Yeah, I know. I just said that. I said it's not that. But we would have had...
No. You're saying, hey, if this had happened 15 years ago, which it did, SARS, right? And
was not proving my point?
No, it wasn't. First off, it was a lot less contagious. It didn't show up without symptoms. So it was easy to tell who might have SARS. Okay, that's a huge difference. So, but there was huge worldwide concern about SARS, and nobody dealt with it as if it was another kind of flu.
But we didn't do this. SARS. But we didn't do this.
Well, because it wasn't this. This is much, much more contagious because of the non-symptomatic spread.
You're right. It is. It's very contagious.
Why
it's not
the
that
people
deadly.
that see things from your perspective don't understand how different this is than anything else? Right? There's never been a flu that you could catch from somebody that has no symptoms.
Yeah, but I'm not disagreeing with you on that. It's very contagious, right? And it's highly contagious and spread by people who are asymptomatic, and so you don't necessarily know who has it, and that hurts the contract trace. I get all that stuff.
That is the lone difference in this and all the other situations.
And despite all of that, most people don't get it, and most people don't die, as we've already established.
Well, I mean...
Wow. I mean, again, stay in your basement if you're afraid. Don't go to Texas. What can I say? But don't you think more and more states are going to ultimately decide on their own, what level of opening?
Yeah, when the time is right, when the science supports it.
What's right? I read something about what's right.
In Texas.
Well, here's the on that note, the number of cases in Texas per day or per 100,000, I forget the metrics that are the most important, are higher than what we have in California. And so people in your camp are saying, hey, wait a minute, why, Texas, you shouldn't open. California is still locked down, and yet they have fewer cases than you do.
I don't care about the comparison between California and Texas. I don't get it. I don't see what good it does, but I mean, on taking that fact on, assuming that that's correct, that just makes it even a more stupid.
So the question is, right? At what level? And I want to say it's per 100,000.
He comes out and says, "Hey, we've reached herd immunity. We've got enough vaccines and enough people that have had it."
So you know how you know that?
Now it's not going to spread like wildfire, so we can relax this stuff.
And you know how you know that,
then, Travis? Not arbitrarily by some Republican governor trying to save his ass after he completely fucked his state over for 3 weeks in a record-breaking cold snap. I mean, let's just not play games. This isn't happening in Texas because it's the right thing to do. It's happening because of his political death that he's about to experience because of the way he's handled the state government there.
Yeah, that's probably true. But again, whatever. So here's the answer though. I want to say it's per 100,000, right? So I read something about the actual end to this thing, and it's some number within the 100,000, and I forget. It's like, is it 25 per 100,000, or it's something, right? It's a very low number. So to your point about herd immunity and vaccines, you'll know that that's working based on the number of new cases per 100,000, and there's a number. And again, I'm fucking it up, but let's say it's 25 or 250 or whatever. When you start to see that number, that threshold, that's when you supposedly are going to say, then we're done with this, and you don't need to have any more restrictions or mask mandates or whatever. Uh-huh. So what you're seeing in the meantime is, and I guess this is your problem with what's happening in places like Texas, is in the meantime, despite the fact that we haven't reached those numbers or those safeguards, is that they're lifting restrictions anyway. So, I mean, I don't disagree with the logic there, but whatever. I mean, they did it, so don't go to Texas. Don't have any layovers in Texas.
Not go to Texas. I would never go in there anyway for any reason. So, is that a lot of people have to lay over in Texas on long flights, huh? Cross country flights or something?
Well, it's a big hub. Dallas is. That's an interesting thing too. When you look at the whole network of airlines and airports, you know the phrase hub and spoke.
Well, sort of. I'm not a big traveler, so.
That's kind of how, at least in the U.S., the entire routing system and the whole network is set up. Is that you have these large cities that are considered the hubs, and you would take fly in larger planes, and then if you needed to go somewhere smaller, then those are the spokes that you go off into the little regional carriers, the smaller planes, crop dusters, to the smaller cities. Maybe they have fewer routes, and so that's kind of how the entire U.S. was set up. And so certainly Dallas, right in the middle of the country, it's a huge airport. A lot of people route through there.
I wouldn't have any trouble going through Dallas on a connecting flight or something. Regardless of the COVID situation, I would take the same precautions there that I'm currently taking anywhere, whatever those might be, and so I wouldn't worry about that. Living in Texas or staying there for some extended period of time, which I would never do anyway. I don't care about Texas. I've never cared about it. There's not a single thing there I want to see ever. And that's it. Jason is the only person from Texas I ever met I like.
There's probably other Texans you didn't know were from Texas.
Yeah. Ted Cruz.
Should we have him on the podcast?
Oh my God! Do you have?
Are you gonna be able to handle talking to people? Let's say we had a Ted Cruz on here. Could you have a conversation with him, or would you lose your shit?
I'd have to tell him to go fuck himself sideways.
You couldn't actually have a conversation. You would say,
Cruz?
Yeah,
I can't. Travis, I can disagree with you and talk to you about stuff. We can even talk about the same things we disagreed about multiple times. And yeah, I can get wound up, but I respect you. But Ted Cruz is a living, breathing hunk of shit. And so Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Governor Abbott, Kemp from Georgia. I mean, there are just some people that I would not even bother to have a civil discussion with them because I have nothing but contempt for them and zero respect. So fuck Trump, fuck Stephen Miller's, fuck them all.
You wouldn't do it for the spirit of the show? We get a big guest like Donald Trump. You wouldn't have a conversation with him?
If you had Donald Trump on the show, I'd have to quit. So that's it. Like, can't be on a show that would have Donald Trump. First off,
I'm not saying he's on the panel with you. I'm just saying he's
right. Anytime anybody airs his shit, they're making a mistake. So, we don't need to hear what he has to say. It's all nonsense. It's all crap. We've heard it continue. I mean, if you can't make a judgment on whether the crap coming out of somebody's face is a good thing or a bad thing for society in general in 4 fucking years, combined with all the rest of its stupid history, then you're just making a mistake.
Yeah, but what if that would give you the opportunity to, prove him wrong? Don't you think there's some, validity in that?
The only thing that would give me an opportunity to do is tell him to fuck off.
Would you feel better about yourself if you did that?
Yeah.
You know me. I think it's, you got to give these people an audience so that the truth comes out, good or bad, in that case, mostly bad, and you let people see who who they really are. Do you want me to cancel the booking? Is that what you're saying?
Cancel the booking. After 6 years of Trump being on the TV every day without fail, every single day, I just don't think that's makes any sense, right? If there's some, and you think, let's just take it down a notch. Josh Harley, right? Here's certainly somebody who is on the polar opposite of every issue that I could possibly think of. And we don't need to hear from Josh Harley anymore. He needs to be voted out of office and forgotten forever.
You still in favor of that? People being voted out, or you want them to be canceled out?
Well, I want you to cancel them, and then I want you to vote them out. Well, I mean, again, I don't subscribe to the cancel nonsense. So I want someone like a Josh Harley to suffer the consequences for his idiotic statements and the things he says and the dogma that he espouses. I want him to pay the price for that. And the price for misinformation and nonsense and things that are dangerous and wrong should be canceled. And if you're an elected official, then you should be voted out of office. Right? That's it.
Well, how are you going to have an opportunity to tell these people if you don't want to have a conversation with them?
He's already told us everything we need to know, dude.
What did you say the other day? That you're not becoming an old crotchety. What did you say? You already are.
Old man.
You're grumpy old man. You already are one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I deserve my grumpiness. Sometimes when we talk about these issues, I personally think the whole COVID thing is on the downslope, and I just don't want to see any group or anybody do anything that's going to set back the progress toward the end of this thing. And we don't have to agree on whether this is going to, we'll see in the end. We'll see if this move causes cases to spike in Texas. We'll know whether it was a good idea.
And you know what the truth is?
And if it's not, if it doesn't spike, I'll be happy to be wrong. I'm fine with that. It won't change the fact that if COVID cases don't spike in Texas because of this idiotic move on Abbott's part, it won't be because he was right. He's still doing this for political reasons.
Well, that's the fear, right? I think the fear is, let's say the cases don't spike, that maybe will empower other states to lift their restrictions, and then there goes the whole government control.
Well, I'm not interested in the government control. I'm interested in public policies that promote the end of this thing. So I do believe, Travis, that for the sake of controversy, you're conflating my feelings about public health policy with some kind of conspiracy libertarian nonsense about government control. So, with this, and again, I say that to you with respect, but
well, listen, there is no question that these fucking power hungry people in government, that's all they want, is to control everything. But here's how I see this shaken down. I think that what you're going to see, just like when the mask mandates happen, some people aren't going to comply. You know who they are because you see them out and about, or you see pockets like we had like in Orange County. And as the mask mandates are lifted, whether it's now, several months from now, whatever, you're still going to see people wearing masks. You've seen that solo driver in the car by themselves wearing their mask. I mean, they're out there. So
yeah.
You know, it's going to be around for a while, and everyone's just going to have to figure it out. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I want the time that I feel compelled by society to wear a mask out of courtesy for the people around me. I want that time to go away. That's it.
Yeah, right? Because those people should eat a bag of dicks and stay home if they're afraid. That's what I say.
You just don't even know what
And by the way, I'm a walking example of this. You know, I wear my mask when I need to go into a restaurant, but I'm out there training with people and mingling and in close contact, and you know, I'm not getting the COVID.
Yeah, that's how you do.
Well, most people don't. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I mean, you and everybody else have those options, right? You don't have an option to not wear a mask when you go into some business or some government facility where there are mask mandates
or an airplane.
You don't have the right to not comply with that. But you know, I don't know of any. I mean, nothing has happened. This is the thing that's kind of getting me, but nothing has happened that has taken away your ability to do what you want to do. So I just never really understand what you're so concerned about. I mean,
well, the devil's in the details. That's, you know, for the most part, yeah. I mean, listen, we've rehashed COVID a million times, but there was a period of time where the sky was falling, everybody lost everything, and then shit turned around, and now we have this new normal, and we're trying to figure it out. And
I mean, I think the only thing that's really happened is we've reached a new national low where we just don't seem to care about 500,000.
Yeah, you should be that's we take a page out of your book. We've ran out of care. The country has run out of care.
Well, I mean, I think it's not. It's a how do I put this? It's a very negative thing that the entire country and possibly the world, but let's just stick with the United States for a minute. 525,000 plus people killed in a year from COVID, and we just don't seem to give a shit anymore. So I think that, and that is what it is. I mean, that just is what it is. And that was what I was a little bit afraid of from the beginning. I mean, you can twist that up by saying, hey, 525,000 divided by 330 million, the population of the United States, is some infinitesimally small number. But that is just not the right way to look at it.
But it is a true statement, though.
Remember, in the words of Stalin, one death is a tragedy, 1 million deaths is a statistic. And so we're well on our way to this not even being a tragedy. I mean, to look back on something that has killed more people than all the wars we can think of combined that we fought as the United States just doesn't, none of that's right. And whether it's right or wrong, that's not really even worth discussing. It's rather it's how bad that is that has happened, that we have now become desensitized to 500,000 deaths. We just don't give a shit. And Travis, the only real difference between the United States and the rest of the world has always been the value we place on an individual life. And that has been diminished significantly by this situation. And to now say, well, it was never really a thing anyway, and everybody overreacted, and nobody should really give a shit about these 500 deaths. That's just not right.
Well, I said all of that except for the last point. Those are my words, except for the part in the end where I said I don't give a shit about these lives. But can we just?
Do you care?
I don't care. I've run out of care.
No, I think so. I mean, and I don't really either. And that's what I'm saying is bad, right? I mean, because it hasn't touched us. But I guarantee you, Travis, if you're one of if you're the family of one of the 525 people that have passed away from some COVID or some comorbidity or something, you care. And when those people hear other people say, well, it was never a thing, we shouldn't be doing anything, I think you're just missing the deal.
Well, can we just agree to put this in my file of reasons to separate the country?
Yeah. Sure.
That's where it belongs. I mean, that's what it is, dude. Everything. We've run out of care. We're desensitized.
Other than that, I can't think. Again, I've been a little bit out of touch. So have we touched base on everything? We only talked. It's been a week, so I feel sort of out of it. But yeah, I'm getting.
How's your tongue? How's your tooth? Is it bothering you?
Do I sound better today?
You do. Yes.
Yeah, I did listen back to last week's, and I had bit the crap out of it so hard that I was having a hard time talking. So now that you say it, but it's been several days now.
Nope, you sound good. You look good. And hopefully this next week of vacation, you'll get some more color. You'll be more relaxed. And we can get you to a level 10 outrage on next week's episode.
Well, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen between now and the next, let's say, 24 months, right?
Are we okay? Are we wagering?
24 months, Debbie is going to month by month approach the age of 65, and that's good for me.
So these things are going to make you what? Less irritable?
Huh?
These things are going to make you less irritable?
Well, I'm going to, that is bringing me closer to something that I think we all know is about due. So I'm going to leave it there without making any proclamations. So yeah, it's feeling pretty good about things in general. I think we're going to turn the corner on this crap. And don't get me wrong, it's all crap. This whole COVID thing has just been a terrible, terrible mess, and we'll get past it like we do everything else. That's not to say that we shouldn't care, because we should. But
coming from two people that ran out of care.
Huh? What's that?
Coming from two people that have run out of care.
We have kind of run out of care. We still care, America. We still care. All right. So,
all right. Well, I'll let you get back to vacationing. Thank you for again being dedicated to interrupt your vacation to bring our listeners another episode of the Couch Funeral Podcast.
Yeah, we don't plug our stuff enough on www.couchfuneral.com.
Couchfuneral.com. Right? You can email us, info@couchfuneral.com. And that's where you can send all the hate mail directed at either Mike or myself.
Right. Let me know when you get Trump or Abbott signed up for the podcast so I can get ready for that.
I will do that. I'm busy. As soon as we get off here, I have to go check in the inventory on your house and see what's been stolen. But I will get back to you on that.
Thanks. I appreciate that. All right.
All right, my friend.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Yes, bye.